Certainly our first meeting of the new year, so it's a belated Happy New Year to all those who are here. We're actually briefing this for the meeting on Thursday, January the 15th. And we have one of the discussion items actually is going to be, we're going to postpone, but we do have a closed session discussion at the very end. I'm happy to turn the meeting over to our county manager, Chantel Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, Commissioners, staff, and guests. Agenda item number 1 is approval of minutes for the meeting of December 18th, and those will be emailed out this week. Agenda item number 2 is a resolution setting compensation for the Forsyth County Consolidated Health and Human Services Board. Denise Price, our Deputy County Manager, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The item before you is consideration to reimburse the Board of Health and Human Services $25 each per attended meeting. This is a 17-member board that is appointed by you with rotating terms. There is currently 1 vacant seat and 2 members that have declined compensation. This is an active board with members regularly attending meetings and also participating in activities outside of those board meetings as well. This is a cleanup item as we've been unable to identify documentation of prior authorization. Be happy to try to answer any of your questions.
Any questions for Denise?
I actually do. Is this one of the items that's budgeted in our budget, our normal budget?
It's currently part of Public Health's budget.
And do you know what the total amount is?
We would have done the 17 times 25 times 6, because there's 6 meetings per day. I can't do that math in my head, but I bet
That's okay.
Dr. Martin's already got it figured out.
No, I don't. But I could figure it out. It's important.
So it's $25 per meeting per person, and they meet 6 times. Okay, thank you.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. 1 vacancy, 2 people who have declined.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 3 is a resolution authorizing execution of an interlocal agreement with the City of Winston-Salem for participation in the Home Investment Partnership. Ashley Penley from our Community Economic Development Department will brief this item.
Good afternoon and Happy New Year. In April of 2025, the county chose to continue its participation in the Housing Consortium in partnership with the City of Winston. This was a 3-year period of renewal to continue providing down payment assistance and housing rehabilitation assistance to eligible residents in Forsyth County through March 2028. And we would utilize HUD Home Investment Partnership Program dollars for that. Down payment assistance is provided in the form of a soft second mortgage, while rehabilitation assistance is provided in the form of a 0-interest forgivable loan. The resolution before you authorizes the execution of the annual interlocal agreement with the City of Winston in the amount of $221,000 for project activities that I just described and costs associated with the administrative operations. This funding was appropriated as part of the 2026 Housing Grant Projects Ordinance back in August of 2025. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Ashley?
It appears that the admin fee is about 10% of the total.
Yes, that's correct.
Is that for?
So it can assist with any of our offsetting salaries for program operations, loan closings, any of our pre-construction costs that are associated with rehab, such as lead, asbestos testing, things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
He does, then I do.
Okay. Do these funds require any local matching funds?
Yes, it does. And we also collect matching dollars from participating municipalities in the consortium. So they contribute a small annual amount as well.
So do these local dollars come for Forsyth County come out of local funds?
I do believe there is an appropriation of general local dollars that go towards the match, but the main amount is coming from the HUD Home Investment Partnership.
Let me turn to our attorney. Why is it not a problem for us to use local dollars for matching funds to draw down these federal monies?
I'm pausing because we just had a conversation with Tyler Mulligan about this very question. It is questionable as to whether that's allowable or not. What we've been working under is that this is a program that has been authorized by the state. We are effectively a creature of the state, and so our interpretation has been that our matching is part of the state program, so it's allowed.
Wouldn't the same reasoning apply to our home repair program for which we administer funds from the federal government?
Yes, the same reasoning would apply.
So I could make an argument then that we are allowed to put local funds into either of those programs to the degree that we have funds that we're willing to invest in that matter.
I'm not sure you could certainly make that argument. I think what our position has been that it's only to the extent as authorized by the grant. The local funds are only spent as authorized by the grant. We are going to have Tyler Mulligan from the School of Government. He is going to be here, I believe, February 9th to talk about this.
Yeah. I mean, that's relevant because I had asked for a draft of a referendum authorization and am prepared, if I can get any additional support for that, to put that forward if that's what's necessary to be done in order for us to have the flexibility to invest some amount of local dollars into those programs.
And I won't get into the whole legal discussion right now. I'll just say that sometimes the state has issues keeping up with the statutes. And I mean, the statutes aren't updated as they really need to be. And so the cleanest path forward would be a referendum, which would clearly give the county authority to do exactly what you're requesting.
Yeah. But on the other hand, a referendum is not free. If we choose to, at some point, say, to invest $100,000 in increasing the number of clients that we could serve with this, the state could always come back and say, no, you can't do that, and we could simply say, okay, we took the money back from the grant. That is, from the grant pool, if the state saw fit to so instruct us. Anyway, it's a discussion of a directly related item, but I don't want to belabor the issue too far. Thank you.
Well, are the local matching funds included in the 221? Or is that in addition?
This would be outside of the local match. This is the entitlement dollars that are coming down from HUD to the city as the participating jurisdiction, and they treat us more like a subrecipient of these dollars, so our annual allocation is 221.
Okay, so can you quantify what the local match would be?
It is a percentage. It is in our 2026 GPO. I don't have that exact number in front of me. I would estimate in the 30,000 area, just off the top of my head.
Yeah, I did the quick math here. So I think the total local match is around 50,000, but the municipalities pay 10,000 of that. And so it's around 40,000 is what we put in as the required match from the federal government for these.
Other questions?
Is it possible just to get a list of where these funds have gone? I mean, some of them are out in the county, I assume.
Certainly, yes, ma'am.
Could we possibly get a breakdown of those funds?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Now, any other questions?
Do you break down the admin fees, how they're
Can.
allocated?
Sure.
I'd like to include that with her request, with her permission.
Okay.
All righty.
Agenda item number 4 is Ms. Penley's as well. It's a resolution authorizing execution of a funding agreement with North Carolina Housing Finance Agency for administration of the 2027 Essential Single Family Loan Pool Program.
So similar item to number 3, a different funder. The Community and Economic Development staff applied for funding through the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency in March of 2025 to provide housing rehabilitation services to eligible county residents who reside outside of the city limits of Winston under the Essential Single Family Rehabilitation Loan Pool. Of course, there's an acronym, so we call it ESFR, LP for short. And that would extend through December 2027. Owners can receive up to $70,000 in construction costs in the form of a 0% interest forgivable loan over a 5-year loan term. Additionally, the county will receive funds to offset staff salaries, pre-construction costs, and other administrative expenses. We can get up to $14,000 per unit to help offset those costs. The county's application has been accepted and awarded by the agency, and this resolution before you authorizes the execution of the funding agreement with NCHFA in the amount of $182,000 for rehab services. The funding was appropriated as part of the 2026 Housing Grants Project Ordinance in August of 2025. And additional funding may be accessed from the state's loan pool on a reservation, case-by-case basis once that initial allocation has been exhausted, which would result in us doing an amendment to this funding agreement should we access more dollars.
Any questions?
Well, now it looks like the admin is up to around a quarter or 25%.
Yes, so this is different. They have increased it from years past. It used to be $10,000 per unit, but with this being a new funding cycle, they have increased that amount.
They quadrupled it?
Actually, they have done a significant increase. It used to be $40,000 in construction costs, so they went up $30,000 per unit, and then they also increased it by $4,000 for soft cost admin.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Thank you. Agenda item number 5 is a resolution awarding a revenue contract to McDaniel Supply Company, Inc. for on-site inmate commissary services for the Law Enforcement Detention Center. Stephen Yantz from the Sheriff's Office is here to brief this item.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board. This agenda item is to request authorization to enter a revenue contract with McDaniel Supply Company for the on-site commissary services at the detention center starting February 1st through December 31st, 2028. An RFP was issued on September 10th, 2025, with bids due October 9th. 4 vendors that attended the mandatory pre-bid conference also provided proposals. Selection was based on the vendor's ability to meet all requirements and be declared a responsible bidder. Then the next selection criteria was the commission rate that was offered. Based on this criteria, it was decided to award the commissary contract to McDaniel Supply, who offered a commission rate of 43.5% on these services.
Any questions?
No questions, just a comment again, no relation to the McDaniel.
Any other questions or comments?
What does it mean that Keefe was not a responsible bidder?
That decision was made by the county manager's office. I would have to defer to them for that.
All right, I'll ask.
Great, thank you.
Agenda item number 6 is a resolution awarding and authorizing execution of a purchase order to Emergency Transportation Associates, LLC, for the purchase of 2 new cab and chassis units with remount of animal control bodies, and a resolution awarding and authorizing execution of a purchase order to Modern Chevrolet, LLC, for the purchase of 5 vehicles. And then Part C is a resolution awarding and authorizing execution of a purchase order to Capital Ford, Inc. for the purchase of 4 vehicles. Jonathan Markle, our fleet manager, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The first item is for animal control remounts. So these are taking the specialized animal control vehicles for the Sheriff's Department, removing those boxes and putting them onto a new cabin chassis similar to the ambulance remounts. We did propose a bid for this that closed on December 11th. We sent the bid out to 28 vendors. Only 1 vendor responded, which was Emergency Transportation Associates. Total cost of $79,452 per unit. Total of $158,904. In comparison, a new unit, if we bought a new unit, a new vehicle, and a new box, would cost about $90,000. Lead time for that was a little over a year, which is the reason that we went the remount option, which we can have these. We should have these done around mid to end August. Any questions?
Good, thank you.
Well, I Googled remount. I got nothing in return. What does that include?
So it's going to remove the old unit. We also have in the bid to replace all emergency lighting,
swap over the control center from in between the front seats as in a standard remount, and then replacing all the HVAC components in the box for the animals that are used.
Okay.
So it'll be a completely new looking vehicle just with reusing the existing box.
Do I correctly understand that this is simply replacing existing units, not adding additional units?
That's correct. This is just replacing 2 units that have bad engines instead of replacing an engine.
Okay. I have heard complaints for years, beginning way back when I was on the city council, that responses for loose animals and reports are very slow, if they come at all. That they're my understanding is that unless there is an element of a dangerous animal on the loose, as opposed to simply strays, that those are given very low priority in responses. Is any of that going to be helped by having the more current units available for response?
I'm going to ask, Mr. Markle is the fleet manager and doesn't do
Oh, I'm
anything
so-
with
I'm
animal
so sorry,
control.
Mr. Markle.
But I'm glad Major Loveland Stanley's here because he can definitely answer that question.
Yeah, so Commissioner, on that, currently we have 11 officers that work in our Animal Services Division. However, half work one day, half work the next day. So you're looking at 4 to 5 officers per day. That's if no one's out sick, on vacation, in school, training, whatever. Typically, they have anywhere between 70 and 80 calls that come in every day. And so those calls where an animal is running loose are given a lower priority due to the fact that they are following with their statutory requirements of going to the bites, the rabies calls, things that are much more severe, or the animals that are aggressive, attacking people, things of that nature. So those stray calls do get a lower priority just based off the amount of personnel and all that. The vehicles are just replacing old, worn-out vehicles that these officers need, so yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want anyone to think I'm criticizing the sheriff's department for not responding to more calls more quickly.
Correct.
It's a matter of whether you have adequate staff to cover the.
Yeah, currently at this time, about 75% of the calls are in the city, and very few of them are out in the county, but yeah, it's a staffing issue. And it's been that way for years. So those are things we're trying to work through and, try to see how we can be more efficient at the sheriff's office. And then, of course, in our budget years, asking for more personnel if at all possible.
Okay, thank you.
And bear would trump poodle, right, on the response?
I'm sorry?
Bear would trump poodle on the response.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions on that one? The second one is to purchase 5 vehicles from Modern Chevrolet. All 4 of these were sent out for bid on an individual spec basis. And then we've got 5 vehicles. One is a replacement cabin chassis for a dump truck at General Services. One is a replacement crew cab long bed truck for Parks and Rec. One is a actual complete dump truck for General Services, and then 2 additional extended cab long bed trucks. One's for Parks and Rec, and one is for General Services there. So a total of 5 vehicles, 4 different specs, not to exceed $263,816.
Certainly appreciate the number of bidders that we received on that.
Yes.
There were quite a few, and it was very competitive.
It was.
As anticipate. Any other questions?
Lastly, we have 4 vehicles from Capital Ford. This is a new spec that I'm proposing. It's a Ford Maverick hybrid all-wheel drive pickup truck. So the Maverick is a small pickup. This would be a crew cab vehicle. And this is going to be replacing existing fleet vehicles, just a replacement from some trucks that are being used at Public Health, and then also at the airport and General Services to replace them with these all-wheel drive hybrid vehicles. So these will be our first foray into hybrid vehicles on the light fleet side.
Again, good competition. Any questions?
All right,
Thank you.
thank y'all.
Agenda item number 7 is a resolution authorizing execution of a purchase order to Store Office Environments of the Triad LLC for purchase of furniture for the agricultural park project. James Anderson from our General Services Department will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. The item before you authorizes execution of a purchase order for furniture for the agricultural park project. The furniture was formally bid by City County Purchasing with advertisement on November 18th, 2025. We received 6 responsive bids on December 11th, ranging from $321,000 to roughly $411,000. Store Office Environments of the Triad was the low bidder at $321,076.97. The resolution also includes a $20,000 allowance for additional furniture needs identified as the project closes out. We had budgeted approximately $400,000 for furniture, so we're well within budget. And then also, none of the bidders were MWB certified. However, High Caps was Hub certified at the state in the disabled category. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions? Good, thank you.
Agenda item number 8 is Mr. Anderson's as well. It's a resolution awarding a contract for the purchase and installation of replacement rooftop units at the Walkertown Branch Library.
This item authorizes execution of a contract with Quality Refrigeration Concepts Incorporated for the replacement of 4 rooftop units at Walkertown Branch Library. City County Purchasing advertised the request for proposals on November 7th, 2025, with 2 bids being received on December 9th. Quality Refrigeration Concepts Incorporated submitted a bid of $117,378.21. And All Things Restored submitted a bid of $204,170.52. I would like to point out, I did make an error in the agenda item report. Both firms are actually MWBE certified. Quality Refrigeration Concepts is a woman-owned company. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Questions for James?
Is all or part of the roof flat?
Part of it is flat, and then you've got the metal roof section that covers kind of that barrel shape.
So you have metal on part and membrane on part?
Yes, sir.
Do you know how old the roof is?
The roof is original to the facility, so it's approaching, I think, about 30 years old. We have a project out to also replace that roof as well.
Okay. Do you know who the manufacturer is of the current roof?
I believe it's a Firestone. It's a ballasted EPDM rubber.
Okay.
Other questions? All right.
Yes, have you had any roof leaks?
We've had a few that our maintenance department's done a really good job of keeping water out of the building.
Okay, thank you.
As you all know, we have a lot of deferred maintenance, so that is going to come up in our budget discussions on capital projects.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. Agenda item number 9 is a resolution authorizing the grant and execution of an easement to the City of Winston-Salem across a portion of Forsyth County-owned real property located at 0 Topsider Drive. Chelsea Swaim, our Deputy General Services Director, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Board. This item is an easement request from the City of Winston-Salem to install and maintain a sewer line across a portion of county-owned property at 0 Topsider Drive. This is for the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Utilities Commission project titled Tanglewood Business Park Gravity Outfall Project. And it includes 30,556 square feet of permanent utility easement as well as 76,660 square feet of temporary construction easement. And this installs 2 gravity sewer lines to connect the Idols Road lift station to one leg will connect to the Tanglewood Business Park, and then another leg will connect to the Topsider Drive, Dillon Industrial Drive properties. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Chelsea?
Underground?
Sorry?
Underground?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Agenda item number 10 is a resolution awarding and authorizing execution of an agreement with NAI Piedmont Triad LLC for brokerage services. Kirby Robinson, our Community Economic Development Director, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Board. Appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. This resolution approves a second agreement with NAI. You'll recall about a year ago, really, you approved the initial brokerage services agreement with NAI to market the Hall of Justice. We are, of course, under contract now. So this agreement basically extends their brokerage services through the current purchase agreement with Med Solutions. So in other words, if the sale with Med Solutions is completed, which you've authorized, we'll owe 6% to NAI, and that was the amount that was under the initial brokerage services agreement, it's their commission. If that sale falls through, then we're sort of free and clear and kind of back to, not to say square one, but we don't have a brokerage services agreement, and it'd be up to the board of how we want to proceed in terms of marketing the property at that point. So in other words, the two are sort of married together. Happy to answer any questions the board has.
Any questions for Kirby?
Well, it expired though prior.
It did. It shouldn't have. That's on me and a little bit on NAI. We were very focused over the last couple months of 2025 of negotiating a purchase agreement for the Hall of Justice, which are not simple things to do, and going through the upset bid process and all the stuff that goes with that. So we had started saying, hey, we need to extend this agreement. I didn't get the amendment processed in time before the original contract expired. So you can't amend a contract that doesn't exist, hence the new agreement. So we were working in good faith together to get this done.
It sounds like very good faith on your part.
Yes, sir. I understand what you're saying.
All right.
All righty. Thank you, Kirby.
Yes, sir.
Agenda item number 11 is Kirby's as well. It's a resolution authorizing publication of an offer to purchase county-owned real property by negotiated offer, advertisement, and upset bids procedure.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Commissioners, I'll just say sort of at the outset of the presentation that the first couple of slides of this are not new. You've seen these before. They are really a part of the presentation that you were seeing at the end of 2025. So I thought I'd recap those slides, and then there's a new resolution in front of you that the last couple of slides pertains to. So I think in total, you actually have two resolutions. The one that you deferred from the end of 2025 that was directing the county manager to solicit fair market value offers for Tanglewood. And then, of course, you've seen, and I don't want to jump too far ahead, but you've received an offer. So the last part of the presentation will be related to the resolution that's in the agenda today. So just to jump into that real quick, you'll recall, of course, that the property has been developed for commercial use since 2016. In 2018, you had the Beaufort sale. We had to buy that property back due to some contract issues. The property's been available for sale since that time. Greater Winston-Salem has been a great partner in helping us market that property really as an economic development opportunity to industrial developers. When you had the site selection survey wrap up at the end of 2025, we asked HDR, is this a viable commercial site? As part of that contract, and they analyzed Tanglewood specifically and said, yes, we think it is, but to attract an industrial developer, you should make a couple of improvements. Those were roadway improvements and site grading. Those were very expensive. And so what we heard from the board was, we're okay investigating the sale of the property as is, and we may be open to potential uses beyond the limited light industrial uses that are on the property right now. So again, here's a look at the property. You have general industrial zoning above sort of that red line on the northern and western sides, RS zoning on the southern and eastern sides, 167 acres. The estimated market value is $4 million. That is a broker opinion of value that came out of the site selection survey. So that was part of that's part of what we asked HDR and JLL to do when they looked at Tanglewood specifically, is tell us, what's the value. So as is, they estimate the value to be roughly $4 million. The tax value, and I like to put a disclaimer on tax value because it's non-taxable property. So tax office doesn't spend a ton of time valuing non-taxable property, but it's $3 million roughly if you add all that together. I'm doing that from memory, Commissioner Linville, so I hope that's right. Again, despite the fact that several improvements are needed to attract industrial development to the property, HDR did note that the county has made the property developable by the past investments it's made. That was initial design and engineering work. That's construction of the sewer lift station, which really opened up sort of a regional presence for sewer capacity. You had the access road that bisects the property, and then the installation of sewer that is ongoing right now, and we expect that, of course, to wrap up this year. I was going to say next year, but it's 2026 now, so this year. And this is the last slide of that previous presentation. I think, as staff, we made a couple of recommendations for what the board may want to consider as you go through a potential sale process. The first was, what is clarifying the method and goal of sale? And I think what we were saying there is, the board has typically wanted to use the negotiated offer advertisement and upset bid process to sell property in the past with a goal of obtaining fair market value. That would be part of your instruction to the county manager. Selling the entire site. And then we said that, it has these restrictive covenants on it that were placed there in 2018 as part of the Beaufort sale. Those were really designed to, help different property owners work together within really what is kind of like an HOA out there. But they do have limited light industrial restrictions on them that if you wanted to open up the market to potential buyers, you could remove those. It's something that you as a board place on the property, you as a board could certainly remove or amend. And then you had a rezoning question. You have two zoning classifications out there. You have GI and RS. Would you want to rezone the property prior to sale to a single zoning classification? Or would you want to potentially consider a rezoning as part of a sales contract? So that's where we left off at the end of 2025, and the board deferred that action to a future meeting, so that's sort of where we are today. In the meantime, about midway through December, you received an offer to purchase the property. That offer was submitted by Williams Land Development Incorporated. The purchase price was $4 million. They've, of course, offered to place the statutorily required 5% deposit, which is really treated as earnest money in a contract. Typically, when folks make offers to the board on property, we ask them a couple of things. One is, well, who are you? What are you offering? And what do you intend to do with the property? Does that involve a rezoning? Tell us about what you want to do there. And oftentimes that comes with terms of a potential contract. And the reason I'm spending a little more time talking about that here is those are important to know, but they are not part of the upset bid process. The upset bid process is price-based. It's not based on your length of due diligence or something like that. The reason I say that is sometimes those things change, and we as staff try to negotiate those to the benefit of the county. They are in a future purchase contract. But oftentimes folks like to put them in a letter of interest, and Williams did here, and we appreciate that. The due diligence period they have proposed is 6 months. And there's a second milestone around rezoning. And really what they're saying there is a contract is contingent upon their ability to rezone the property because they intend to develop it as residential. They have said, and again, this is not in a contract right now, but they recognize that the board is invested in affordable home ownership, and they are offering to reserve a certain number of homes for first-time home buyers that would be reserved at the affordable price point set by HUD. And then they recognize, and this is part of our conversation with them, that there's a concern around traffic near that property. They are committed to working on a traffic impact analysis, a TIA. They will start that during due diligence, probably will not be completed during due diligence, but once they have a site plan, they can start working on a TIA, and that'll be submitted to DOT for their comment, of course, as well. In terms of process, if you want to accept this offer and you would approve this resolution, it would be advertised for upset bids, and that's, of course, the process the board has wanted to use to sell property. The last and highest offer with that purchase contract that has all the terms and conditions of sale would come back to you. So it's a two-step process to get under contract. At that time, if you did approve this, it goes out to upset bid, and whomever's offer comes back to you. If it does not involve a limited light industrial use, you would have to either dissolve or amend the restrictive covenants that are on the property. Once under contract, the buyer will conduct a variety of studies, that's normal in due diligence, to determine the developability of the site, and that's when they produce a site plan, so you can see what they're intending to construct. A purchase contract, and I'll sort of note again, will be contingent on the buyer's ability to rezone the property and develop the site as intended. They'll share those results with us during due diligence. That will involve a traffic impact analysis, the creation of a site plan, and other studies. But once you're under contract, the county would not be able to cancel that contract. So there could be a result of that. Let's say that we're saying, we maybe don't like that site plan. There may be other ways to deal with that. But as I understand it, in terms of the purchase contract, the buyer would have the ability to cancel that. The buyer's deposit is refundable, less the cost of advertisement until the expiration of due diligence, as standard in real estate contracts. As well. If they needed to extend due diligence, and this is part of what we would negotiate in a purchase contract, we would typically require steps of non-refundable portions of the deposit to extend due diligence. And that's just all part of that sort of fund negotiation process. So with that, that's a lot at you. You have two resolutions. One was the original resolution directing the manager to solicit offers. And ironically, then we got an offer, and so that's in front of you now for upset bid consideration. Happy to answer any questions the board has.
I will interject briefly. So I know the board is aware that the Village of Clemens has been very interested in this property and how it's developed. After this was brought forward in December, the village staff reached out to us, asked to have a meeting with the village staff, a couple of village council members. We did have that county manager's staff as well as a couple of commissioners met with their staff and a couple of village council members to discuss what was going on with the property. They expressed some concerns, but as our understanding, they're going to discuss what they wanted, this issue tonight at their regular village council meeting, and may or may not decide to be a part of the upset bid process is the last that we understood. So just wanted to provide an update there since we did have a meeting with them.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a question, mostly it's just observation. I've touched on it before. Long history behind this property, and I really don't need to see that the county needs to sell it. It is a piece of property that is not like a building that would be sitting, that the county's just having to keep it up and what time it might be sold. This is different than that. It's all, as far as I know, most all of it is woodland, has been timbered, so if it was not sold, it would just remain as it is. And at this time, I don't support putting more money in it. We've already done that to see if we could sell it, and that hadn't worked out. But nevertheless, it's different, in my opinion, than a building setting where the county's having to spend upkeep money on it. So I guess I'll just have to wait and see what happens. I guess, Mr. Attorney or Kirby, you also, is this potential sale agreement, is it different than the one with the Amos Cottage property?
In terms of the form of the agreement?
Yes, I just want to be sure that it sounds like to me that somewhere that the contract that might take place, that somewhere the bidder of the property could seem to be me somewhat in control. Maybe I've been interpreting that. Where, Mr. Attorney, if the board wanted to do so, if you get X bid on it, at what point does the county still have control and say, no, we don't want to do this? I'm not suggesting what the whole board might do. I'm just asking the question for my own benefit, I guess.
So this is a little different because it's a rather large commercial piece of property, and so you're fully in charge up until you sign a contract to sell. So whether you choose to reach out for offers from anybody, or whether you choose to publish this offer, you're not committing to anything at this point. If in a couple weeks if you vote to publish this, and a couple weeks later there are no upset bids, it will be brought back to you, and then you would decide whether you want to sign a contract with these folks or not. That's the point that Kirby was talking about, because this is a somewhat complicated development which would need rezoning. It's doubtful anybody is going to pay you the $4 million in one check up front. They're going to want to go through and do their due diligence and get the rezoning. And so as Kirby said, the contract could be structured a number of different ways to make certain parts of that non-refundable after a period of time. But that would likely be true of most any commercial developer, that they would want to have a certain period of due diligence.
Yes, sir. And I'll just say the terms and conditions we negotiate, of course, we have the county attorney approve. And what I was showing here was actually the same process the board approved with the Sturmer Park sale, I think is what you might be thinking of, sir, when you have basically a raw piece of land that's going to have to be rezoned and then developed.
Okay, that's all I have now.
Other questions, comments?
Do we have any sense whether the development of the property for residential use, residential purposes, would cost the kind of money that developing it for industrial or business park purposes would? That is, the $12 million estimate we've got of what it would need to put into it in order to have it ready.
You're talking about the site improvements.
Site improvements, yes.
That's right. That's a great question. We have to look at that a little bit. I mean, of course, HDR, when they came up with those estimates, were thinking of tractor trailers turning on and off of the property. I think residential, you're going to have a higher volume of traffic, smaller cars. And so I don't know the answer to that.
And this really goes to Commissioner Linville's basic point, which is I support selling the property, but I don't necessarily support rushing the sale. If we have received what on its face is a quite reasonable offer, when it wasn't broadly known out there that we were putting it on the market, we might get some higher offers if we put that invitation to make us an offer out there that a potentially interested party wouldn't necessarily have the time to do during an upset period if they were starting from scratch about not knowing of the availability. So I wonder whether it's worth passing the original authorization to put it out there to see what else we get, sort of independent of sort of an initial offer coming from the a would-be purchaser who heard about it through the grapevine, as it were. I raised that as a question.
Well, the $4 million offer, and you can, the people that has already bid on the Amos Cottage property, the one that put the first bid in, they probably knew it was worth more than that. And then somebody else comes along, and then somebody still might come along. But I'm wondering, you referred to $4 million that I don't remember who the firm was that you said thought that might be somewhere in the ballpark. Well, whomever has made this offer may think, well, that might be what the county wants. If this is different, that you put it for the upset bid, and somebody comes along and ups it to 10%, I guess 10 or 5, then at that step, what is the next step then?
That's when our wonderful clerk republishes it, and it continues for successive 10-day periods until you reach that last and highest offer, then comes back to you for consideration.
Okay, then it's when it comes back to where the county wants to sign a contract. Okay, that's kind of where I'm at. I just don't want to
That's right, two-step process. This one is just getting that offer out there. Theoretically, that's what the upset bid process is for. To your point, 10 days sometimes is not a lot, especially if you hear about it on day 3. We'll do our best, if the board approves this, to get the word out. I mean, I've sort of asked folks along the way, because, we've had a tremendous amount of upset bid activity over the last year, and in 13 years of doing this, I haven't seen any of that. So we've gotten a little bit better at it. I asked folks, well, just out of curiosity, how did you hear about this? How would you hear about this? And so we would do our best to use that information to publicize the property and the offer. And it's gotten a fair amount of traction in the media, I think, already, too, but we just have to make sure we get it out there if this is something the board wants to pursue.
Commissioner Bessie, I don't remember the exact time, but it's been, seems like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, after the county had spent quite a bit of money trying to get it ready for sale, and we'd put quite a bit of money in there. And Kirby, you can go through the details. You can remember all of that we did have a buyer for one lot of it. I don't remember the dollars, but exactly what all of the confusion was, I'm not sure it wasn't the county. Then the potential buyer decided not to.
Yeah.
And is that, just summarizing, is that somewhere close without you wanting to go in further detail?
Yeah, I think Kirby got lucky. He didn't have to go through that. So we actually did close and sell one lot. It was around $499,000, I believe, if my recollection's right, to a company called Beaufort. However, there was issue when dealing with Clemens on getting access to Topside Drive that held that up, and ultimately we ended up purchasing that property back from Beaufort.
So we've made good efforts on that end, and all of that wouldn't I don't think any of it was of the county's doings. Nobody don't want to pinpoint the problem, but I'll leave it there.
I mean, I wonder if we're getting more upset bid action because the value of land in Forsyth, particularly for residential development, has gone up. And so we may be in just a new economic environment with regard to the potential value of pieces that we have that we don't, it turns out, need for the original purpose, or have some problem with developing for the original purpose that they were obtained.
How big was that lot for about $500K that was sold?
14 acres.
Okay. So we are still short, I guess, at this point, if it was unloaded at $4 million of $2.7 million on investment. But these were access and sewer improvements made to the property. And this buyer has got a clever offer here. It's they've woven in a feature of affordable housing. They haven't told us to what extent. And this is like the last one we dealt with. Every time affordable housing comes up, some other entity steps up and trumps it with another offer.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to tell you to what extent because they don't have a site plan at this point. They don't have site control. They haven't gone through the analysis to be able to develop that. I think they were trying to show good faith because in what we asked them. So we as staff say, the board's going to want to generally know what you want to do here. It's hard to answer that sometimes as a developer because you don't want to be held to that, right? Because you haven't gone through all of the analysis and the studies to determine if you can even deliver that. So I think that's sort of where we are today is they're saying, yeah, a certain number. What that is, we don't know. They know that the county has, and you heard Ashley talk about it a minute ago, down payment assistance program. And so I think they're trying to weave some of those things together where you have a residential development, but then you have sort of the benefit of first-time home buyers and the affordability aspect of that.
And you don't know why the village has acute interest in it at this point.
I don't know why the village has interest in it.
Clemens, I'm sorry.
I haven't spoken to Clemens.
Yeah, I think similar concerns they had 6 years ago. They've indicated they had some concerns around traffic improvements and just kind of the use and how the surrounding neighborhoods view it. So I think those are probably their biggest concerns.
And their interest has to do with control. If they owned it, then they control it.
Right.
Okay. Well, that's Idles Road for you.
Isles Road and Middlebrook, excuse me, Middlebrook Drive is the particular choke point that they seem most concerned about, or that they anticipate getting the most heat about in the case of a new development. So, yeah, I think in the ideal world for the Village of Clemens, they would have control and would probably make it available for low-density residential development, or some of it for that, and maybe use some of it for hiking trails. I don't know what their end game would be, but that's clearly their interest in obtaining the property, is controlling what development.
Because of access restrictions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. I think to answer Commissioner Bessie's point, I think I understand what you're saying, more advertising, whatever, may bring in more money in the future, but the risk of that is that we have someone who's interested now that may decide they're not interested in the future. So it's a matter of, I guess my thinking is, if we do the upset bid process and get to that point, and then if we don't feel comfortable about any part of it, we don't feel comfortable about the sort of the lack of specificity on low-income homes or whatever, affordable homes or whatever it would be, then we just don't accept it then. I mean, we just don't do it then. But I think we could let it, we've got Clemens is meeting tonight to talk about it, so that automatically is producing more publicity about this site. I think the publicity's out there. This is whether, and I think there are other residential developers who are clearly aware of this, at least according to the Clemens group that met with last week. I think they think other residential developers are aware too. So I'm probably in the position that I think going ahead and advertising now the upset bid process, and we'll see what happens at the end of that.
It's a little bit of an untapped market from the Tanglewood standpoint, because we've been seeking limited light industrial. So when you open it up to potential residential, you're right, there may be more out there.
Well, I think the upset bid process is great. I mean, we've had good results. Just for an example, Amos Cottage, we've had 3 different bids. So I think that's the best way to go, is the upset bid process.
I'd say I think it's a reasonable judgment call either way. It kind of comes down to that classic question, do you feel lucky? Do you think you're going to get the best offer with immediate upset bid process, or do you think there's an untapped potential out there that might drive up what the county would get for it, in addition potentially to the various sweeteners? I'm still weighing that question.
Well, I always favor moving county property, selling it, and we don't want it back. But I have to say, I think that Commissioner Linville's comments this afternoon are spot on with this property.
But I think, or at least for me, I try not to make sure I'm not implying what others might think or want to do, is I have the obligation to do whatever I can and encourage others to do for the county to get the most value out of that or any other property got, if we're thinking about selling it. And I guess lastly, that the $4 million just not going to do it for me. But got that far along.
Any other conversation, comments, questions?
Thank you.
All righty. Thanks, Irby.
Agenda items 12 through 14 are our reports. 12 is the October appropriations transfer report. 13 is the November appropriations transfer report. And 14 is the November contribution-based benefit cap report. That's all of our agenda items. I just have a closed session motion.
If you would read the proper language, I'd be happy to make that motion.
Thank you. I need to ask the board to consider a motion to go into closed session to discuss a matter to consult with an attorney employed or retained by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body, which privilege is hereby acknowledged pursuant to the provisions of North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A3. And since there's no other business to come before the board at this meeting, following the closed session, the meeting will be adjourned.
I'll make that motion. Second by Commissioner Bessie. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Go to closed session.